There at the wall displays more details about these facts and the hazards of the proposed nuclear location. In addition, you can see that many of those faults have been given names. They are so well known. At the top you see the Worsley Fault. Close to Eagle is the Bear Canyon Fault. I mentioned the Hines Creek Fault, the Hines Creek Robin, the White Mud Fault, also the Tangent Fault, the Normandale Fault, also called, that extended to the Snake Lake earthquake area. A few weeks ago, Shell Canada released detailed plans for the Carmen Creek in situ oil sands project located in a western area of the Peace River Oil Sands District. This newly revised Shell project has great significance to the proposed Bruce Power nuclear plant location near Weberville. The Carmen Creek project is located 25 miles northeast of Peace River town site. The Shell plan is to increase bitumen production from 12,000 to 80,000 barrels of bitumen per day. The western boundary of the Shell oil sands is located just east of the Peace River. It's on trend with the White Mud Fault. Now, increasing bitumen production to 80,000 barrels a day presents a serious risk of inducing seismicity, geologic fracturing, and earthquakes by movements on this mapped fault and graben system. Now, over a 35-year period, this 80,000 barrels per day calculates to about 1 billion barrels of oil. That is a super giant oil field. The oil industry employs geoscientists who thoroughly understand the geologic history of faulting on the Peace River Arch for their own exploration purposes from their proprietary information. It's important that we hear from experienced industry geologists and geophysicists about this critical subject, because what I'm showing here is strictly published information. That's all I have. This information, new information from the industry, could help provide a better understanding of the detailed risks and hazards of triggering seismicity under the expanded Carmen Creek in situ oil sands project and inducing earthquakes near the proposed Bruce Power nuclear location on White Mud River near Weberville. This is a detailed map of the Lac Cardinal site that Bruce Power first proposed for a nuclear power plant. The fact that Lac Cardinal is a beautiful recreational lake and was the original site selection indicates how uninformed the nuclear promoters really were about the people living in the Peace River area. The existence of the underlying Grimshaw freshwater aquifer is evidence of poor judgment by Bruce Power in even considering the Lac Cardinal site. I had a tour this week around Lac Cardinal in the provincial park and can't imagine how anyone could make this a nuclear plant site. This photo helps bring a human dimension to the subject of fractures and earthquakes. This is an outcrop of the Guadalupe Mountains in the Permian Basin of West Texas and southeast New Mexico. It's a good illustration of how complex fractures really are in the subsurface. Fracturing is a very important concept in geology. In the oil patch, reservoir fractures can be both a blessing and a curse. They can be a blessing when we drill into naturally occurring fractured reservoir rocks, because open fractures can greatly increase permeability and the flow of oil and natural gas. These zones are often called sweet spots in high-producing wells. Fractures can also be a blessing when we effectively stimulate wells through the hydrofracture technique and other completion methods. However, fractures can also open up unexpectedly and dramatically increase underlying water flow. Unpredicted fractures can also create leakage and permanently damage deep reservoirs that store natural gas, carbon dioxide, and radioactive waste material. Fractures can become a curse also from repeated small seismic events that weaken bridges, buildings, and nuclear power plant facilities. A classic example of serious damage to a nuclear power plant caused by fracturing occurred 2 years ago. Fracture damage resulted from an earthquake near the Kashiwazaki nuclear power plant that caused a major shutdown of the Japanese nuclear industry. These events proved earthquake fractures can seriously damage modern nuclear facilities. This is a map published by the Geological Survey of Canada documenting Western Canada earthquakes. The strongest earthquakes, natural earthquakes, are along the west coast of BC, with a secondary trend west of the Mackenzie Valley. There are also 4 separate induced earthquake locations to point out on this map. The first is the already mentioned single Snipe Lake 5.1 earthquake southwest of Lesser Slave Lake, and the second is a cluster of earthquakes related to the Eagle Fields near Fort St. John. Both, again, of these mentioned before, both of these oil field earthquake sites were the result of traditional water flooding operations and movement along well-mapped Peace River Arch faults. There's a 4th magnitude 3.8 earthquake that's not on this map, since it occurred in January of last year, January 2008, and is located about 45 miles northwest of Fort McMurray, near the intersection of 2 basement faults. This is the first of 2 detailed oil sands lease maps with underlying published pre-Cambrian faults. Note Fort McMurray, colored in yellow, is located inside a faulted box structure. The northeast-southwest fault nearest to Fort Mac I have named the Fort McMurray Fault. And the north-south fault that crosses near the Clearwater River, the Clearwater Fault. The surprising Total Deer Creek blowout is shown by a dark green dot on the north end of the shorter fault, forming the northern border of the box structure. The 2008 magnitude 3.8 earthquake is located near the northwest corner of this faulted box structure. This is a southern continuation of the previous oil sands lease map. The Virgin River Shear Zone is a well-known, published, and previously named fault, extending over 1,200 miles. This fault has been mapped by the GSC on the surface of the Precambrian Shield and plunges into the basin in the Cold Lake area. This is an Alberta government map of bedrock geology and defines the Athabasca, Cold Lake, the Peace River oil sands districts, and the smaller surface mining outline in the Fort McMurray area. This map illustrates deep erosion along the Athabasca River Valley, making this surface mining area the most accessible location with the least amount of overburden to remove and mine tar sands and bitumen. This is an important Alberta government map illustrating the thickest, that is the thickest in feet, about 100 meters, thickest bitumen deposits colored in dark blue and grading to thinner bitumen deposits in shades of yellow and orange. This map is in the handout at the display table and published in my peer-reviewed paper, which I just mentioned, the Tar Sands Key Geologic Risks and Opportunities, published in September of last year. The complete faulted box structure is now clearly shown with the previously mentioned 3.8 earthquake near the northwest corner of the Fort Mac box structure. This earthquake is on the same short fault segment as the previously mentioned Total Deer Creek blowout as a result of SAG-D operations for bitumen. The Shell Carmen Creek project is identified by the light blue areas east of the Peace River. Carmen Creek is located on trend with Peace River Arch faults. The Virgin River Shear Zone, the one to the south, the southernmost fault, travels southwest through the Cold Lake area under the depleted Redwater oil field